The Aztec Empire was a tribute empire based in Tenochtitlan, which extended its power throughout Mesoamerica in the late post-classic period. It originated in 1427 as a triple alliance between the city-states Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan, who allied to defeat the Tepanec state of Azcapotzalco that had previously dominated the basin of Mexico. Soon, Texcoco and Tlacopan became junior partners in the alliance, which was de facto led by the Mexica of Tenochtitlan. The empire extended its power by a combination of trade and military conquest. It was never a true territorial empire controlling a territory by large military garrisons in conquered provinces, but rather controlled its client states primarily by installing friendly rulers in conquered cities or constructing marriage alliances between the ruling dynasties, and by extending an imperial ideology to its client states. The empire reached its maximal extent in 1519, just prior to the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors led by Hernán Cortés, who managed to topple the Aztec Empire by allying with some of the traditional enemies of the Aztecs, the Nahuatl-speaking Tlaxcalteca. The Aztec people were an ethnic group of central Mexico, primarily those groups who spoke the Nahuatl language and who dominated large parts of Mesoamerica in the 14th, 15th, and 16th centuries, a period referred to as the late post-classic period in Mesoamerican chronology. Aztec is the Nahuatl word for people of the Aztlan, a mythical place for the Nahuatl-speaking culture of the time, and later adopted as the word to define the Mexica people. Often the term Aztec refers exclusively to the Mexica people of Tenochtitlan, now the location of Mexico City, situated on an island in Lake Texcoco, who referred to themselves as Mexica. Sometimes the term also includes the inhabitants of Tenochtitlan's two principal allied city-states, the Alcahuas of Texcoco and the Tepanecs of Tlacopan, who together with the Mexica form the Aztec Triple Alliance, which has also become known as the Aztec Empire. Aztec culture is the culture of the people referred to as the Aztecs, but since all ethnic groups of central Mexico in the post-classic period shared most basic cultural traits, many of the basic traits of Aztec culture cannot be said to be exclusively for the Aztecs. For the same reason, the notion of Aztec civilization is best understood as a particular horizon of a general Mesoamerican civilization. Among the cultural traits that the Aztecs of Tenochtitlan shared with many other cultures of central Mexico are the cultivation of maize, the basic social organization dividing society into classes of noblemen and commoners, the complex of religious beliefs and practices, including the pantheon with gods such as Tezcatlipoca, Tlacoc, and Quetzalcoatl, and the calendaric system of a 365-day year. For most people today, and for the European Catholics who first met the Aztecs, human sacrifice was the most striking feature of Aztec civilization. While human sacrifice was practiced throughout Mesoamerica, the Aztec, if their own accounts are to be believed, brought this practice to an unprecedented level. For example, for the reconsecration of the Great Pyramid of Tenochtitlan in 1487, the Aztecs reported that they sacrificed 84,400 prisoners over the course of 4 days. The pre-conquest Aztecs were a society that had 4 main methods of agriculture. The earliest, most basic form of agriculture implemented by the Aztecs is known as rainfall cultivation. The Aztecs also implemented terrace agriculture in hilly areas or areas that could not be used for level ground farming. In the valleys, irrigation farming was used. Dams diverted water from natural springs to the fields. This allowed for harvests on a regular basis. The Aztecs built canal systems that were longer and much more elaborate than previous irrigation systems. They managed to divert water from a large portion of the local river to provide irrigation to large areas of field. The networks of canals was a very complex and intricate system. Of the various crops grown by the Aztecs, maize was the most important. Aztec diets centered on it. Maize was grown across the entire empire, in the highland terraces, valley farms, and also in the Chinampas. Women ground maize into a coarse meal by rubbing it with the grinding stone called a mano against a flat stone called a metete. The Aztecs made tortillas from the cornmeal. Other crops that the Aztecs relied upon were avocados, beans, squashes, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, and chilies. Modern-day Mexicans and people of Mexican descent in their other countries are of mixed indigenous and European history. During the 16th century, the racial composition of Mexico began to change from one that featured distinct indigenous and immigrant populations to the population composed primarily of mixed ethnicity that is found in modern-day Mexico. The Nahuatl language is today spoken by 1.5 million people, mostly in mountainous areas in the states of central Mexico. Local dialects of Spanish, Mexican Spanish generally, and the Spanish language worldwide have also been influenced in varying degrees by Nahuatl. Some Nahuatl words, most notably chocolate and tomato, have been borrowed through Spanish into their other languages around the world. Mexico City was built on the ruins of Tenochtitlan, making it one of the oldest living cities of the Americas. Many of its districts and natural landmarks retain their original Nahuatl names. Many other cities and towns in Mexico and Central America have also retained their Nahuatl names. A number of towns are even hybrids of Nahuatl and Spanish. Mexican cuisine continues to be based on and flavored by agricultural products contributed by the Mexica and Aztecs of Mesoamerica. The food also has become a popular part of the cuisine of the United States and other countries around the world. The modern Mexican flag bears the emblem of the Mexica-Aztec migration story.